we have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Thank you. We're getting new impressions of the sky. Once upon a time, clouds used to be puffy like this. Today, you see a lot of streaks, feathers, and unnatural crisscross configurations, lines. When you look closely at the lines, you see this. You see ropes in the sky made by planes. We live in a white world of whatever it is that's descending on us from above. Our visibility is impaired. The sky, as we look up at it, is now a much lighter blue. But the change has been so incremental that most of us are too busy to have noticed. Which leads us to the subject of geoengineering, defined as the large-scale manipulation of the Earth's environment to suit human needs and promote habitability, can rescue us from climate change, which is nature's retaliation against us for creating global warming. For now, we're told that this is a future consideration, but for years, we've already been seeing strange clouds and hazy skies. You have nature trying to cope with the introduction of new substances, particularly metallic oxides, which are also the metallic salts. Living things take up these salts along with the water that they're seeking. The natural world, which gets its food from the ground, is sucking this stuff up. This is a scraggly pine tree outside the post office in Cardiff, California, where I go every day. And you can see how brittle it is, lots of needles lost. We will be told that science will have to step in to save it. So, you'll have GMO trees as the answer. The silent forest, they call it, genetically engineered trees, non-reproductive, no fruit, nuts, blossoms, no insects, animals, birds. Low lignin, that's the wood fiber, which makes the tree very easy to cut and pulp. The silent forest will grow straight and tall and will be replenished by the state in what will be considered appropriate numbers and in appropriate locations. The air is no longer neutral. It no longer supports in a healthy way living things. The second group of materials found in these environmental samples is unidentifiable fibers. And I really want you to appreciate the meaning of unidentifiable. These fibers have been sent to sophisticated laboratories, and there is nothing in the databases that match them. People around the world are developing lesions on their skin that ooze and produce fibers. Tissue samples cultured from ordinary people without this ailment contain and grow the very same fibers. So where do these fibers or filaments come from? Airborne environmental samples that were collected by Clifford Carnicom, he is a researcher in this subject, in 2000, the year 2000, gathered at high altitude on a mountain in New Mexico, showed the presence of those fibers. whose structure matches exactly the tubular filaments. When I say fibers and filaments, basically interchangeable, showing up in our blood, tissues, and skin. Additionally, the samples collected by Mr. Carnicom showed what he calls, and was called in biology, desiccated erythrocytes. This is a multisyllabic term, but it means dried red blood cells. So, why these were in the air? Why are dried red blood cells in the air? So again, you have to ask yourself, if I were 5 years old, I would say, Mommy, what are red blood cells doing falling out of the sky? Biology divides life into 3 kingdoms: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Bacteria and archaea are simple organisms with no subcellular compartments. Eukarya are complex with defined cell compartments and internal organelles, mini organs like mitochondria that make DNA and energy for the cell. Plants, animals, and humans are eukaryotic, as are fungi and slime molds. The archaea are the hardiest of the life forms. They're able to withstand grinding pressure, heat, acidity, and alkalinity. They can live in volcanoes, geysers, and the ice shelf. It appears that within our bodies we now have all 3 life kingdoms replicating themselves. What does that make us? Are we still eukaryotes, or are we becoming something else? You could call this transbiology, a crossing of biology, the creation of hybrid. The creation of hybrid.
Italian girl from New York. This is the big time for me.
Well, that's right. Well, we appreciate you being here.
But most importantly, I think it's about bringing people together, and the performance we did last night at the Grammys was, and what we've been doing with the egg and the rebirth, it's meant to signify an artistic statement of birthing a new race, and it's a race with no prejudice, a race within the race of humanity that bears no prejudice against anyone. So that's really the statement in itself.
Well, that's great. That's really good. That's really good. Now,
interesting shell-like sculpture.
I think this was her plan all along, to have eccentric outfits each time, so now she can just have bubbles and no one knows it's her.
Yes, she's already making a scene on the red carpet. Look over it when you cut to it, for real.
We're over to get her on the carpet then, right? Get her to come through on the carpet again, or no? Are we talking?
The serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked.
I just told you who I thought I was, a guy. I made that decision based off of my eyes.
Look around you. Look at everything you see. This, dear one, is you. Call it self, call it God, call it nothing or everything. These words do not matter. For words are merely signs, signs that tell us what something is. So each and every person defines the word God a little differently.
There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually.
Here we have L.A. Marzulli, who is an author, a radio show host, lecturer, and is also a biblical scholar, and is one of the experts on the Nephilim, the children or offspring of the fallen angels. Could I have your thoughts as to what you think we're looking at?
Well, I'd certainly be honored, and thank you for asking, Brian. I'm certainly no expert on what I am seeing, but I will say this, that we know from the biblical account that fallen angels mated with the women of earth. We know that. And they did it also afterwards. And in my opinion, what we are looking at here might be a Nephilim. Now, the biblical account will say that the Nephilim were always giants, but that doesn't necessarily hold true. This is obviously post-flood, well after the flood of Noah. And what we see is the same type of genetic manipulation that these entities, I call them fallen angels, that these fallen angels engaged in. They are messing with the genome constantly.
I'm a legend, I'm irreverent, I be reverent, I be so far, we don't give a fuck, Welcome to the danger zone, step into the fantasy. You are not invited to the other side of sanity. They calling me an alien, a big-headed astronaut. Maybe it's because your boy Yeezy get ass a lot. You're so hypnotizing, could you be the devil, could you be an angel? Shrek, rockets on deck. Tell me what's next, alien sex. I'ma disrobe you, then I'ma probe you. See, I abducted you, so I tell you what to do.
Fiber strands that you see here were made of cellulose and GNA. GNA is glucans polysaccharide sugars, and this was confirmed by microscopy. GNA is a synthetic cousin of DNA. It has a 3-carbon glycerol sugar in it instead of the 5-carbon that you find in DNA. Here's a news report from April 2008 in which we are told, big headlines, GNA is DNA's chemical cousin. It's a nanotechnology building block. The fibers that contain a head, she calls it a golden head, orbs, and they all have this payload in them. Here you have a nano array that she found, a couple of them in her body. And again, I'll say it again, the nano arrays are these tiny devices that are used for DNA hybridization.